What?
Hey.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Howdy.
We're back again for another Brew, adventure. And we brought back two very, very awesome gentlemen and a little mini me. You should have put Caleb's name up there.
Oh,
here it goes.
We got Spider-Man.
It's really not Caleb. It's Spider-Man.
He's coming to save the day.
He's adorable.
He's He thinks
he's adorable. He was with us at Fort Mifflin. We were investigating, and he was actually like asking questions to the ghosties, weren't you?
Yeah.
Were you asking?
they
You're
like
what?
children.
He was wearing the ghost at Fort Mifflin out because he was running around so much. He was wearing them out.
So true.
He had so much energy.
I'm trying to share the link onto the Brew's page really quick before we start talking. Share to a page. I don't know what's better, if I copy and paste it or if I just share the link.
I don't know. I don't know what you usually do.
I forget. I mean, this whole thing is confusing. All right, let me go on here. So, how's everything been going in your world, guys? I know you guys have been pretty busy.
It looks like it.
Did you guys both go to the Lookout House?
Unfortunately, that was canceled. Due to
Was it?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, restrictions. Only 25 people, and so with the lots, is they have a few people on their team that run the event. So with that, there would be only 10 people that could be there. So for them, it wasn't cost effective. So they had to reschedule it.
You know what? Everybody's stuff is getting rescheduled or canceled. I mean, I was talking to Ray Savino about it last night. He's like, everything is just, I don't know if it's, for me, I would be going to as much as I could because I'm getting sick of being stuck in the house. You know what I mean? But
I know what you're saying.
Most people are so scared to do anything. You know what I mean? And all these people that have events and stuff set up, everything's getting canceled or rescheduled.
Do you remember when we just had to be afraid of the ghost and that was it? I don't know if I can dare to stay overnight in that house. That's what we used to be afraid of.
Yeah, now we're afraid of the corona. Ghost.
Yeah, now you're gonna be afraid of so much.
Yeah.
And I had been to the Lookout House together, but this last event was canceled, as he was saying. He was going to be down there, and that didn't go down. That didn't happen.
So you guys got some entertainment tonight in the background.
Winding down. I thought he was getting sleepy. I guess not.
Makes me exhausted.
I remember that age.
We have people checking in from the UK, Pennsylvania. So hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Hello.
So
Cheers.
there might be people that, missed our show previously with you guys. So really quick, just, give a little recap of the magic that you guys,
Well, together we are duo Daemonologie. Without each other, we're just Daemonologie. We have no duo, but we are a team of two. We are a research unit and investigatory team. So we are applied demonologists. We will go out into the field and address situations. But it is demonology, is the study of wicked spirits. I define demonology as the systematic study of the lore and cultural traditions of wicked spirits. That's basically what it is in our, Western Hemisphere. It's demons. And there are dark malevolent forces that we cannot, we call them dark. That means, not understood, misunderstood, or not understood at all. And that's what we address. We specialize in that. We are paranormal investigators, but we just happen to have that extra notch where we will look into these deeper, darker cases. And we are called upon to do that. Now, in this field, of course, we always get more questions than answers. That's just the nature of any paranormal research, but especially in demonology. So This is James's brainchild to call us duo Daemonologie, and it fits the old in the King James parlance. This is 17th century spelling of demonology, Daemonologie with an IE on the end. So that's what we're doing. We write and research and lecture, and every once in a while we find a situation that we are called upon to address, to go out there and actually talk to these people, meet them, and try to reassure them, try to get to the bottom of what their problem is. And if it's a demonic infestation, it's always problematic. In fact, we've got something coming up soon. I don't want to divulge it yet because we're just organizing it, but we may have something real to talk about when we talk with you next, when we're next on Paranormal Brew, because you will have us back, won't you?
Oh my God, you guys are going to be a once a month?
Yes.
A monther. We have to have you guys on once a month because you guys, what you guys do is really, I think you guys know this, but because I said it the last time, but I'm Casper only. So, what you guys do, which is interesting, something you just said, Carl, you said that, you said darker spirits, meaning misunderstood.
Yes.
So.
Poor misunderstood things, yes.
Yeah, so it's not demons you're dealing with, or is it just negative, dark?
Well, in a strict sense, it's demonic. It's demons that we deal with, yes. But this is basically the unknown, and that's why we call it darkness. Mysterious, unfathomable. So it may be something else altogether. It may be a form of demon. It may not be demonic at all. We assume the demons are inhuman creatures or beings
right
in our world. I mean, maybe not all demons are malevolent. Maybe that's just an echelon of spirits. But if it's disturbing somebody, that's when we'll go out and try to address it, try to quell it using standard methods. But really, in the end, we have a poor understanding of what we are dealing with, what we're looking into, and we may never know altogether. A lot of it has to do with psychology. And I think that's the major point where duo Daemonologie may differ from other paranormal investigative teams, although we're called upon when it's something heavy like that. We will first explore the psychological aspects because in my long experience, I've never come up against a demonic case that didn't have deep-rooted psychological ramifications. There's always some unresolved conflict, something to do with the mind that either calls it in or generates it. So we try to find out, when did this start? When did you first start having the symptoms? When was this going on in your home? And try to find out what engendered this haunting. So that makes it all the more fascinating because we are dealing with a human mind, which is pretty murky and misunderstood in itself.
And powerful.
Oh yeah.
And powerful.
There's more.
And how powerful, very much so.
There's more neurons in our brain than the stars in the universe, and that's something you can look up. So that's impressive.
Well, I disagree with those figures. But I don't know.
If you look at neuroscience, it is something most neuroscientists will say that there are more neurons in the brain than there are stars.
I disagree with those neuroscientists. Let's say I'll give it a really big figure. Take two galaxies like Milky Way and Andromeda. Take all the stars that could be covered in those, combine them. Yeah, that's what were we talking about again? How many?
I'm just saying though that the human mind is very complex.
No, the human mind, neurons. Yeah, he's talking about how many neurons and synapses and dendrites are in the brain, in the human brain. It's a fantastic computer, and it's just vast. It's almost incalculable how many units there are in our brain that actually generate thought. And some of those are going to go awry, and some of them are going to take over and mutiny, and you get all kinds of psychological aberrations. Yeah. But it's not purely psychological either, because the mind, you said the mind is powerful, Karen.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes that can produce the demon, the phenomenon.
Right.
It can make it happen. It can we don't know totally if it brings it in from an outside source or actually creates it, generates it through principles we can't yet understand. But yeah.
How long does it usually take you guys to figure out whether or not this is a psychological issue or they really got some stuff going on? Like how
much interaction we have with the client or the subject. I would say if we had to generalize, I'd say well, usually within a week we have a pretty good estimation of what it's going to be.
I think there's certain things, especially in the assessment and interview process, which I do multiple point. In my personal, where a client would come to me without a group being involved, I would do a phone conversation, an email conversation, and then of course an in-person interview as well. To line up all the stories to see if there's any. If they're claiming that they're possessed, usually that's an instantaneous red flag. Most people that are demonically possessed don't know that they are possessed.
It's a red flag because it's a warning, a little guarded. This person has self-diagnosed themselves as being possessed,
which is dangerous because it's like going to WebMD and diagnosing yourself with cancer or some other ailment that could affect you. So, but in that standard as well, it really depends on interactivity with that person. Like I said, usually if certain things are said, all cases are different, but there are similarities to every single one of them as well. And that's how we try to analyze it. As myself, I try to analyze the case per past experiences, but also you got to remember you're dealing with a new person in front of you with a different personality, a different name, different characteristics,
different background and history.
So you have to assemble a bunch of different information. Sometimes a week, sometimes it could take months, and sometimes you could have a thought of what could be going on, or you could think just psychological issues at hand. But then there are other things that happen that throw you off your regular path, and then you may do something else. I know with Sabrina, I've dealt with it personally, and Sabrina did. And talked about a little bit last year, but Sabrina got involved. I got MUFON involved. Like, there's things that we generally think of in the direction. This is what this is. This is what it could be, and then you keep exploring, and it's like, oh, maybe it's not. You bring it down. It could be months. Really.
Yeah, and again, how much interaction we have with that subject.
So generally, for me, I'm thinking, and I'm just going to use myself as an example. Like, if I'm possessed, I'm not picking the phone up and calling you guys saying I need help, right? Probably. Generally, it would be a family member or somebody that's like, something's not right, something's going on here.
Maybe early stages of what we would call oppression, the person might be seeking help. When they get further into this, being ensnared by the invading personality, then they're not going to be seeking help so much. Somebody has to intervene on their behalf. Somebody else has to say, hey, my brother or sister or my husband, my friend is acting strange and saying things that don't make sense, but they seem to be malevolent. So, and they have religious leanings. So maybe you guys better look into it. That's why you need the other person to seek people like James and myself out.
Yeah, and of course, like we were saying, even though we are titled as demonologists and, of course, paranormal investigators, we are brought into a lot of cases that aren't technically demonic in nature as well. Some could be malevolent. It could be, like Carl was saying, it could be multiple different sets of things that we are brought into because of our backgrounds. And that could be poltergeist. It could be psychokinetic. It could be multiple different things that we come in. But most of the time, it's usually due to misconception, and they think it's demonic. And at the end of the day, of course, it's not. At least with my cases, I've had a limited amount of experience with demons because, unfortunately, they are truly, honestly rare. And I know people like to say demons are rare, but they're rarer than the word rare. It's crazy. Yeah. I haven't dealt with one in a few years, and that's, I
knock on wood.
Yeah, right. Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood. Like Carl said, we were working on a situation right now, possibly, but we always pray. And I know a lot of people always hope to deal with the demon because they don't believe it exists, which I think is a stupid thing to want. But I know Carl and I both hope that we never come across those cases, even though we study it and are involved in it.
And even though it has a certain amount of allure and fascination for us, but still,
they are
thrown into that arena. It's not a comfortable situation.
It's not, and there's a lot of effects that happen to you in your personal life, into your mentality, into your spirituality. There's a lot of things that occur, and even if there is something not demonic, and the nature of the thought that it is demonic, that's still hectic because I don't know if you've ever dealt with somebody that's dealt with many years of trauma. It's difficult. So sometimes in that sense, if they have issues psychologically, yes, Spider-Man, psychologically, it's still hard to deal with those people because they jump to so many conclusions, they're gullible. And, I've had clients that, and this is a big thing too. I've had clients that, were scared, but they call me at 2 a.m. in the morning every day, and you really have to start to wonder, what's the situation at?
Right. And I mean, at some point, I would think you would have to set your own boundaries
Yeah.
for this stuff,
Well, you kind of tend to be, if you have a client and they have an active situation, you're on call. And of course, we're dealing with sometimes unfortunately, since we're dealing with the preternatural, they could call at 1, 3 in the morning. We both had that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Just ignore it because
Sorry.
No, that's all right.
So there was a question here. How does one become a demonologist? I'm sure you guys get that question a lot. So,
well, we give a different answer each time. So well, I think it's just in my case, the demonic realm found me. It seemed that every case I was being alerted to, or is it what we're talking about? Yeah. But it seemed every case to which I was alerted had sinister leanings. There was something malevolent about it, Then some of them were adjudicated to be, demonic. And so that found me. But if somebody aspires to be a demonologist, you just start asking. You watch shows like this. You get in touch with us. We can recommend certain reading. I mean, it would be a lot to take on somebody and mentor them. But we can certainly advise somebody. You just look for the sources. You read what you can about the subject. You might find differing views. Contrast, all the better. Now, a book I would recommend would be Shadow Realm Demonology Handbook. I just happen to like that.
Because you wrote it.
Wrote that one with Lana Brock. And and I thought Lana was just going to write an introduction or something. She ended up writing about half the book. And it's 50 pages. It's a primer in demonology. It's not the definitive work on demonology. It's just, a series of perspectives. Like you may benefit from reading what we encountered. So that's one thing I would recommend. So it really is a quest. There are some courses, but not accredited courses in demonology. You just basically ask around, and you need to make a commitment if you're going to become a demonologist. Basically, that you won't run out of the room if something gets hairy and scary, which it does sometimes. Also, you must commit yourself to sometimes hours of reviewing evidence. That's something a paranormal investigator learns. And with demonology, it can be even more hours of listening for that one snippet of evidence, be it audio or visual, watching. So
now, when you're going to cases like this, you do audio and stuff like that? Like you guys?
Initially it's conducted. The interview process differs somewhat, but initially the actual investigation will be like pretty much a standard paranormal investigation. But we are looking for criteria. We are looking for other signs that it could be demonic.
Right.
Trying to get our hopes up, so to speak, but looking for something that sets it apart from what would be considered a ghost.
And in some form of fashion too is, we're not going in there in the general sense of asking questions, personal questions. We're more seeking a response in a way that we could detect what is there in some form or fashion. Like Keith Johnson, your brother, doesn't ask personal questions. He doesn't even do that.
Oh, you mean that to the spirits?
Yeah, to the spirits.
Yeah, my brother will not address the spirits as if they're conscious entities.
So,
and he used to. I think we all used to.
Yeah.
My brother will not. He feels it's unscriptural, that it's wrong, and just doesn't make a lot of sense to ask these invisible presences questions and try to interact with them.
So sometimes we don't ask questions, but we'll generally create audio, not create it, but have audio there because we want to hear if there's anything that's receptive, because we have to diagnose. There's a lot of cases that we aren't brought in by other teams. If there's a team that is involved and they have brought us in, usually we kind of like not leech off of them, but we'll piggyback off of what they've obtained. We'll listen to it, we'll review it, and then of course we'll do a little something on top of that as well, because we want to get our own data. We want to check barometric pressure. We want to check things that maybe a team didn't check, such as like venting. If there's mold in ductwork, if they have ductwork.
Which
air
James is
infiltration,
experienced in because that's his job, basically. That's one aspect of his employment.
plumbing, especially vent piping, like concentric or flue piping. We check if there's leakage, if there's anything natural, because we have to exit those things out of the possibilities first. Because if there's some natural causes, and if there is something supernatural going on, but if there's a mixture of things, you have to solve the natural before you jump to
What he's saying, you have to look at the
supernatural.
more empirical causes,
Yeah.
if it's ventilation, if it's the air the person's breathing, if there's a low-grade electric current being generated, all things that could affect someone's perception. As much as we can, it's not perfected, but as much as we can, rule out those more explainable causes.
Definitely.
Then what you're left with could be gold. It could be the actual paranormal.
So we do assess, we do dig, and sometimes this digging, and I think there's a natural understanding that when you investigate a location, it's just one time because people have that perception. But there's times that Carl and I have been involved in cases for years, months, like we were saying. So there's a lot of data collecting and a lot of time.
In fact, I want to talk to you about one of those. You'll be interested.
So if you guys go in and originally they're thinking, okay, this might be dark, negative, and then it's like you find out, let's just say, that it's really, it's a Casper case, or it's, something that, do you guys continue to help whoever it is, or do you call up the team and say, what, this is,
Karen, that's still a successful investigation and a successful intervention because we've got to meet the people, and usually they're interesting people, getting stories to penetrate. We were able to get some answers, and we are quite satisfied with that, and a little relieved that it wasn't something for citizens. And when we find out something or suspect something is demonic in nature, honestly, at first there is that feeling. We've got something to work with. But when you're in that setting, and like you get this good feeling. I don't want to be here. I don't belong here. But you got to see it through. So, which this dichotomy, you want to be involved. This is what we do. You want to find something out there that just can't be explained away. But you also want to help people. You want to get involved in the process.
Yeah, I worked on the case. A prime example of the case that I was brought in that was quoted demonic because of scratching and other physical interaction with the person. But the problem is, I don't really know what spirits are. I can't give you a quantified answer and say spirits are this, ghosts are this, demons are this.
Quantum.
But in that same nature, though, I dealt with the case for quite a while because I was stumped. These physical interactions were happening, and intense. You could tell based on the certain interactions of what was going on. But I do work with mediums, and I do work with people that are sentience, whichever they like to associate themselves with. I do like to test people to see if their beliefs are in fact true and legitimate. And I have come across people that I do believe have these abilities and have been able to get things out of the air that they should not have to be able to know or understand. So I worked on this case that was wanted to believe it was demonic. And at the end of the day, the conclusion was that we believed it was his grandmother. Because grandma lived downstairs and he lived upstairs. And when she passed away, certain things started happening. But he was acting in a negative way. He was like saying, he was swearing at somebody that if she was alive, she probably slapped the crap out of him. So he was interacting in a very, very different way. And every time he would do so, there would be some interaction in a physical manner. There would be object by location, things happening.
It really sounds eerie. So how did you resolve this?
So I take it for a grain of salt, but I had like 5 or 6 different people, maybe different mediums, that don't know each other. They asked them what on this. He gave him a picture of the man, and I said, "What is your reading off of this?" Oh, his grandmother. His grandmother's mad. So I'm like, okay, do I take this 8 different people, 6 different people, whatever? Still, more than one person that don't know each other qualify this to be that. So we came at that approach. And then at that approach, we said, all right, it could be your grandmother. If it's your grandmother, stop swearing. We did a crossing over, a cleansing of the property. And as soon as that happened and he stopped swearing, the activity was minute, it was done. And eventually he was able to live on his life. And that was just from James, stop provoking the situation. And of course, with the cleansing, the crossing over, which necessarily does help, in my opinion. But with those things, the case was able to
be resolved.
Have resolved. Yeah.
So what do you think? Did you inadvertently perform an exorcism, or was it a form of exorcism? You know,
well, a house blessing is not an exorcism. No, a minor exorcism over a house is done for demonic infestation, and there was no demonic infestation in that house in my in my belief.
I concur with you. Yeah, but maybe that was a minor form of exorcism, but not called by that.
Well, a house blessing.
It's not officially an exorcism, no, except you are warding the house.
Yeah.
You're creating an unfriendly space for unwelcome spirits.
Yeah. My rite of exorcism that's done over a house is a totally different ritual in the perceiving of blessing of the house.
Well, that is a definite ritual, a definite exorcism ritual.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to cite one case. I know we're dominating and not letting you get a chance to ask your questions.
It's okay. Go ahead. There's a couple of questions more in the audience that we'll get to, but yeah, you guys go ahead. Do your thing.
Gordon, I gotta get this out first. Then we'll take that question. No. One case I want to illustrate was actually fictional, but predicated on a real history case. And I assume you've all seen The Exorcist. Best time to watch that is around 11 midnight, and have your popcorn with you. It's still effective. The film was produced in 1973, released in early 1974, but that still is effective. I think.
We watched it
it's so well. Yeah, we watched it together 2 months ago. It's because it's so well acted, I think, and it brought the story, which was an excellent novel by William Peter Blatty, to life. Now, in that story, my point is, the little girl was invaded by a demon. 12-year-old Reagan Teresa McNeil. And they bring in elements in the story, brings in elements of the psychological and the spiritual and the supernatural. The demon, this is what's so masterful about that story. The demon starts off like showing that obviously this child is possessed. What could explain the sudden change in her personality? What happened to this young woman, this girl who's taken over? Then the priest, Damien Karras, who's also a psychiatrist, goes to see her, and he evaluates her case as being of the mind. It's a mental aberration situation. Because the demon turns it that way, the demon manipulates him so that everything points to psychological. And then the novel turns around again, and it turns out maybe this is a real demon. This is something, spirit invading her. And then, the grand thing is, it turns out to be both. Which is what happens in real life. It turns out to be both, but the players are, Damien Karras, who is a psychologist and a priest, who has lost his faith, his Christian faith, and he's taken a very clinical view of it, approach to the case. But then enter the exorcist, Father Lancaster Merrin, and he has encountered this demon before and driven it out of a boy before. And then it's a final showdown with him. The demon comes back to challenge him. And that's obviously spiritual. He's fighting the demon Pazuzu. And you get both. You get the mundane, the priest who's lost his faith and is a psychologist, has clinical training. And you get the exorcist, the older, more experienced priest who does not question it, who knows it's real. And somehow the novel manages to blend these two realities. And at the end, the priest reclaims his faith. He's saved. Both the priests die in it. Sorry to give that away.
Right.
The girl is saved.
That's like The Rank with Anthony Hopkins.
It's one of my favorite.
I love that movie.
How can you go wrong with Anthony Hopkins? Oh, he was dismal in 1 or 2 films, but that was the script, not him.
My most scariest one is the entity. I will go on the record forever saying
A
that.
lot of people concur with that.
The entity scared the crap out of me. Still to this day.
What affected me most, I think, was the possession of Emily Rose.
Exorcism of
Well,
Emily Rose.
I think the movie is the possession of
No,
Emily Rose.
Exorcism of Emily Rose is the name of the movie.
Well, we'll look it up. But we can watch it together. I'm happy.
All right, we will.
And but that also is based on a true life case.
Annalise McKell.
And Annalise McKell. That's why that one's so scary. That just makes it more effective when you know it's based on a true story.
Yeah.
It's based off of Raleigh out of Baltimore. Yeah.
And there's also that famous movie, The Conjuring. Now that's loosely based on a true story. In that there were people who lived in the town of Harrisville, Rhode Island, part of Burrillville, Rhode Island, and they had a haunted house. I think it ends somewhere around there. The similarities. But it is based on real people. Of course, James and I have numerous times been to that house.
Yep. We have had the pleasure to know the new owners.
Yes, get to know the new owners.
It's a very peaceful. It's very nice. I didn't feel anything negative in any way.
That's how we feel. James and I will wait over there.
Sabrina messaged me. She's asked me, like, what's your true opinion of this place? I was like, it's like a homey house. I love it. It's peaceful. I think it's what you bring into it.
Yeah. Some people, the house wants
The
to.
equipment went off quite a lot. But it was
active.
it's very active, but
You won't go there and be disappointed. If you're looking for activity, you won't be disappointed. There'll be something. There'll be something.
my one thing I was talking to Andrea, I was saying the first thing that I went to actually was the circle outside. The rock formation that was like in a circle. I'm like, oh, there's like a circle there. And I wanted to just stay there. Even though I didn't get to sit there, I just, for some reason, I was very drawn to that area.
Very comfortable with that spot there.
Mm-hmm.
Your power spot, so to speak.
And the other, and inside the house was that library area where you sit, the library where all the books are.
Everybody, it's virtually invariable that people who go into that library get that early, they're drawn into it, they get that eerie gut feeling. You just feel like you're sitting down with some former relative.
It feels like you're walking to a huge field of static electricity because you definitely get the instant goosebumps. You definitely feel something there.
Oh, I think there's a reason for it. I think the former homeowner is still there.
Yes.
With his beloved library.
Yes.
All the books are his. Jerry.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people.
How about that blood board? Were you there with the blood board, the Ouija board that was made?
Oh, yeah, by Danny Perez and Lauren Perez. Yeah,
that's crazy, wasn't it?
You did a great job.
You're talking about the one with the Conjuring House panorama on it? Or,
yeah,
you did a good job.
And then he did that and to the point where he was bleeding. That's crazy.
He put his life's blood into that work of art. Now, of course, we would never actually use a Ouija board to prognosticate.
We do not.
Look at it and admire it. What a piece of art. Now, Sabrina, you don't use that. You don't use one of those spirit boards. Oh.
No, I didn't use it.
How do we know? You know what? I never saw a planchette with it. Where's the heart?
I believe there is a planchette.
It's gotta be.
I don't think that
Danny wouldn't have forgotten that.
No, definitely.
I don't remember there being a planchette.
He's a great craftsman.
Yeah, it might have been. I'll have to look at my pictures.
Anthony, you ever use a Ouija board?
Did you ever use the Ouija board?
When I was in Lizzie Borden and Bread and Breakfast, I used all their boards that they provided. I was in the living room where the father was murdered.
Oh,
and I started using all their Ouija boards, and
So you made up for lost time in that one night.
one of them, I think one of them, the oldest one that was close to 100 years old, 80 years old, was it?
Really?
Was starting to spell out the sister's name, but then it stopped. Yeah, because my question was who murdered you? Who did this to you?
The obvious question.
Yeah, the obvious question. Yeah. And it started to spell out
the sister.
The sister's name. Yeah. But I mean, it stopped.
That's my theory. It was.
I let it go. I was so tired.
That was my theory. I think Lizzie was part of it, but
of course,
I think the sister was the main mastermind.
That's one of the prize theories.
It
there,
is. It
yeah.
is.
And Karen, have you experimented with Ouija board?
I used the Ouija board when I was about 12. Brought it home.
That's
And
how the little girl in The Exorcist was, as a matter
my
of fact.
mother freaked out, and she's like, "Get that thing out of my house." So from that moment on, I always thought it was taboo until I saw Bob Murch's lecture about the Ouija board, and he totally enlightened me, about, how it's, not that as bad as the movies make them to be bad. You just have to know what you're doing and know how to open and close and, whatever, but no, I don't. I personally, I don't mess with Ouija boards. But I also am not a big equipment user either. When I go on,
Usually.
so I prefer not to use the Ouija board.
I will say I have used a Ouija board numerous times. I went through a lot of years where I didn't, and I had some interesting results when I was an adolescent. In fact, there's an episode of a TV show, a series. It's in syndication now. A haunting. There's an episode titled "Dangerous Games," and that tells the story of myself and my siblings growing up in a haunted house, and we were playing on a Ouija board. A lot of that's spot on, But I've used one this year and last year during demonstrations at ghost hunts.
You used one last week in front of me. Just kidding.
No, not last. They don't bother me. I wouldn't take literally anything they say. They do come up with some amazing things that, like they divulge knowledge they shouldn't have. Whether that's a spirit, whether it's something working through us, I don't know. I just think they're kind of fun. But I will say I do not use them while I'm driving.
Well, yeah, no, you can't do that. I know one time when I'm, around this whole 12, 13-ish thing, I actually back then tested that theory, right? So
you use a Ouija board while you were driving? That's
where it's, your mind, right? So I'd say you ask a question to my friend, and in my head, I was saying the answer over and over and over and over again. And it spelled out the answer that I was thinking. So that was just my experiment, that I had, because I was like,
that's exactly what it is, an experiment.
Yeah,
you learn from that.
Yeah.
There are some, I can't name. I'm terrible with names. I forget my name sometimes.
That's bad as me.
I
never forget your name.
You don't forget name. Well, you do maybe forget names, but you
I
have a pretty good memory.
I forget what time I'm supposed to be someplace.
Sometimes here, on time. But yeah, so I don't use Ouija boards, but I know the process, and of course, I've also have done my research on where people have, especially scientists, have done research on these devices. And a lot of the times when you're using a Ouija board, you're using it for a reason, right? So there's already an action. There's already an action to what you want to receive.
There's already a supposition. There's already an expectation.
Yeah, expectation. So sometimes it's autonomous, where our brain puts it out and we don't realize that we are actually ourselves moving the planchette. There is an actual technical term for it. Can't think it off the top of my head right now, but it is a psychological. It is psychologically proven that we do this, where we will move the planchette without us knowing, but we did it. And even though if it's recorded, it might not look like we're moving it, but slightly. Another thing too is any divination tool has this process, table tipping. And if you really know the bylaws of magnetism and magnetic poles, you would see, if especially, of course, which blows my mind, and some people don't correlate to the same thing, is remember when I was tipping the broom? You can tip a table in the same form or fashion. It's called magnetism. It's called gravity. You can tip a table the same way you can tip a broom.
You did that, didn't you?
I did, actually. So people tend to forget that. So there are natural ways that we can do things that will throw us off because we think it's supernatural, but we're not coming to the point of knowledge that we are actually the ones doing it.
Yeah, the jury's out on that. It probably will be. I mean,
yeah.
I can see very easily how your fingers could manipulate that, because you're supposed to place your fingertips on the edge of the planchette, the component in the middle that moves around. And you're supposed to do it so lightly you're barely touching it. Some people hardly touch it, and it's not going to do anything. You put more pressure, and then your partner might think you're pushing it, faking it, or don't even realize you're doing that. So naturally, there could be little impulses from our fingers that are just moving it that way. Or another possibility, maybe small-time, low-grade poltergeist activity, maybe through psychokinesis as we're moving it around. In any event, I have trouble believing that a spirit actually comes through and takes your hands and pushes it, but I don't know.
I agree with you. But speaking of that, let's bring up, Teresa had a question. What are your thoughts on people messing with dark magic towards others?
That's a very relevant question these days.
It is. I'll let him answer this because,
True.
not to throw him on the bus, he's very open about it. He was a Satanist. I've never performed dark magic towards others. I think it's ridiculous. But I also think it's the same thing. It's like, if you pray for somebody for good intention, I do believe prayer works. So in the same formula, if you perform a ritual magic and it is a negative intention, I believe that there could be some prosperity to it, because if you put enough effort into something, it does come to fruition. Look at goals. We put enough effort into goals. It's an idea. It's an intent. And we can achieve our goals. So dark magic, I believe, can be used in the same process. But this man knows more about dark magic, especially the application of it, more than I do.
Thank you for letting me answer that question, James.
You're welcome.
No, but your exact question, Teresa, is my thoughts on people messing with dark magic. You know, I mean, like, what's the whole principle like, or the people themselves? I think when somebody does that, they're in a vulnerable position because it can come back on them. Towards others, dark magic, I think you mean as a hex or a curse, or just to influence somebody using dark forces. You're on thin ice. You're on shaky ground, whoever does that. I wouldn't say it's always a terrible thing, but it is always ill-advised. Because it's so unpredictable, and the person is aware they're conjuring dark forces. It's like a wild beast. So how do you know it's not going to turn on you? Or if you get results that you regret, that's not going to be a good thing, because you shouldn't regret the magic you throw. But it's interesting. I find it very interesting.
Yeah.
You know, it has a certain grandeur to it, black magic, if we call it that. Black magic matters. You know, because you know, it's cut into the quick. You know, it's the usually black candles and all the trappings and everything. You know, I have destroyed our conversation.
Oh, yeah, that was unexpected.
Well, I didn't know
It took
either.
It took me. Yeah.
So, you know, if you want effective magic, I can see where that would be a shortcut to effective results. Because, you know, when somebody's in what they call a ritual chamber, a secluded environment, and they got maybe a black robe on, burning black candles, you got some maybe satanic Luciferian motif and, on the wall. Yeah, that's going to know you're messing with something. You're doing something, you know, forbidden. Something off the beaten track. So that's almost certain to get results.
Yeah.
But the results are unpredictable. So
And a lot of those practices, too, not add on top of it, a lot of those practices, a lot of those beliefs, where those foundations come from, they actually do naturally say, especially, of course, Wicca, the threefold rule. What you put out will come back to you 3 times, right?
Yeah.
So if you do negative things, there's repercussions to that. And
but then again, conversely,
Yeah.
the person who's throwing the magic, you know, creating the magic spell, they're always convinced they're doing it right. You know, like, well, I only curse bad people. I only throw curses on people who deserve it. You know, she hurt my girlfriend, so I'm only going to, that's so I'm going to throw a curse. You know, well, he deserved it. This person needs a blessing. Yes, I'm calling the dark forces, but for a good cause. You know, I'll say though, I still, all those trappings I was describing, I still have a fondness for that. That was fun when I did those things, you know. But I go back in time, way back in time, when I was 17 years of age, and was a practicing Satanist, by whatever name. I called it Luciferian. Ed and Lorraine Warren asked if they could document my performing a ritual, and they would use that in their lecture. They certainly did. So when we're setting up, about to let them film, they brought the reporter staff with them. Mr. Warren asked me, he said, "Whoa, where's the cage with your animal?" I said, "Animal? What animal?" I really didn't know what he meant. He said, "Well, your sacrifice." I said, I don't sacrifice animals. I don't do that. He said, "Well, you have an athame." He called it. "Where's your athame?" "What's that?" He said, I a ritual dagger, right?" He said, "Well, yeah, because you have bloodletting, don't you?" I said, "Oh, no, I don't. No, I don't do these things, So, of course, he had if you call yourself a Satanist or a Luciferian, you're going to get negative connotation, of course. But, there's also misconceptions, which are quite understandable, that we're going to do all these hard things. No, but it made for an interesting lecture, I'll tell you.
However, the show Lucifer, has maybe enlightened people a little bit more to be accepting a little bit.
You gotta like him, don't you?
People Arianism. Their concept of Lucifer is different in the Christian format. So people tend to forget that there's misconceptions. It's not all bad, but the idea of Satanism or Satanists in preconceived notion, especially with Antoine LaVey, was rebellious nature.
Yeah, well, that was Anton Szandor LaVey's interpretation of the satanic ideal. The Satan exemplified or symbolized rebellion, the rebellious nature, turning against standard protocols and all that, like rebelling, unvarnished things, throw up the hypocrisy, penetrate, get to the core, so that was the allure for me, and it wasn't that I was as interested in what happened through magic. That wasn't my goal. I just thought it was exploratory to, perform magic, see if you get results and all that, Magic is a wicked beast at best.
And then when people hear sacrifices, it always seems to be of negative nature, even though most Christians don't know. Of course, we come from Judaism in some form or fashion. They used to perform Holocaust, which were sacrifices on goats, and then they burned the goats after they killed the goat. So there's been sacrificial aspects of many religions.
It goes way back, yeah.
So it goes way back. But people have a misconception you're going to sacrifice something that's of negative intent as well.
There's somebody that kind of, I think it's not a question, more or less an opinion.
And a criticism. How about that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on, wrong one.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if you guys can read that. Can you read it?
Yes, I can.
Archons. Okay.
I'm reading now. Poltergeist. Poltergeist that maybe takes on a personality and generates one through a rigorous process of self-revelation, shadow work. I like that. I find that doing cleanses, warding homes to be effective, but it usually depends on the client's faith. That is true.
In some form of fashion, yeah. It's not just the client's faith, but it is also the client's mentality too. They see. I think everybody tends to think it's like a magic ritual. Like magic is misunderstood as well. Like we don't just come in and say words and then things are banished. It's like cleaning your house. If you don't clean your house every so often, there's going to be dust that collects. Your house is going to smell. So it's in the same thing. You have to have a
smell like demons.
You have to have a continued maintenance afterwards. You have to have a change of mentality. You have to escape the negativity of your mind. Because when people are in negative situations, just like how we would go to work, if we're a positive person, but we go to work every day and it's a negative environment, then we're going to come home or be at work as a negative person, even though we are positive individuals. So if you can't escape yourself from that negative realm of things after dealing with it, then it's just going to be a recurring cycle. It's never going to end, which goes back to where we're talking about the psychological aspect, the trauma. That has to be solved before faith can take float, because you have to believe in yourself to have faith as well, in some form of fashion.
And to respond directly to her statement, responding precisely to his statement. Maybe it's not demons all the time, because demons is interpretative. It's an interpretation of what these forces are. There's something. We say demons because we lack the clinical terminology. We don't have sufficient span of nomenclature to apply to these things. So it could be argued that maybe they aren't demons. Some things tend to have that criteria. Some spirits will be malevolent. They'll be tricksters. They seem to, what else can you call it but a demon?
Yeah.
But maybe it is a poltergeist, let's say, which is
psychokinetic in form and fashion. Yeah.
Yeah, but still rather supernatural.
Yeah.
So maybe that poltergeist puts on a mantle. For a while becomes demonic and behaves like a demon.
Yeah.
Because it's been synthesized, the poltergeist energy is there, and it gets turned into demonic.
They do gain an intelligence. They've known to have been gaining into intelligence.
Yeah, they do. Some of them have voices, poltergeists do. I've experienced them. And what I would like to do as a demonologist, I would like to say, no, it is the demon. It wears different guises, but it is always the demon. I can't say that because it's too vague. There are too many variables involved.
The one thing I do jump to, though, is I look at anthropology and the history of people and our society and how things have developed. And one thing that you can take, and of course everybody jumps to the conclusion that demons are Christian, but if you look at Hinduism, which is the farthest oldest modern day religion, over 4,000 years old, they have demons. If you look at a lot of their literature, the gods would always fight demons. That was like their daily thing. Let's go fight demons. So
what about African tribal culture too?
Demons as well. So the idea of demons in some form or fashion have been around.
So ingrained in human history. And prehistory.
Yeah. So for me to say demons don't exist, then many people have experienced something. But there's many different characteristics and terminology of certain things. And of course, certain characteristics of certain entities bleed together. There are differences, and that's why we characterize these things. There are differences in between certain different levels of hauntings as well. So it is how you take it and how you experience it as well.
It was presented as a statement, not a question, but I concur to a degree. And if it was a question, are they demons? The answer has to be yes and no, and sometimes. It becomes very.
There is somebody here. I think. Where did I just? He said that he used to have your number, but he lost his phone. But he said that he has a case that he needs some insight on, and I think Anthony did tell him to email you guys, but I don't know if you guys. He said that's his email.
Right.
But we told him,
Duo Daemonologie Facebook, or you can reach me personally, and I can get them in touch. All right, there you go. Thank you, Elise. That's our manager, by the way.
Yeah, quoting Elise, manager of Duo Daemonologie, Elise Gianmarco Carlson. Eric, can you email Duo Daemonologie?
gmail.com.
Yeah, at gmail.com. It's spelled DuoDaemonologie. So the key is that tricky AE and then the IE at the end. You'll find it. I'm gonna get that.
Okay.
Or or our new website, demonology.org, which is more simpler, and that links to our.
We'll be in touch with you, Eric. You email us with some of the particulars. We'll get back to you on that.
Elise just said that she was going to take care of it, so she'll get you guys in touch, I think. And then he's just saying that you guys helped him. You guys helped him prior to that. So
I know he's a friend of mine, Eric Martin. And I'm sadly out of touch much of this year, but we'll get back in the swing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Demonology@gmail.com for all of you.
Yeah. So I was always under the impression that, because I was listening to what you were saying, poltergeist was more thought forms.
It is psychokinetic. So poltergeist is quantified for many people to be noisy spirit or noisy ghost.
Yeah, that's actually its interpretation.
But
that's the interpretation. It's a German word.
Yeah,
Geist is ghost or god.
It can be to knock, to bang, like poltergeist.
But
in the door.
In formal fashion, it is like a tulpa. It is something that is created by thought, perception, intent. Sometimes not known to be created, but yes, a poltergeist is not of like a human spirit. It wasn't once living. It is something that is what we look at in theory, of course. This is theoretical. Theoretical. Oh my God! Take the big words. Take the big words. But They go.
He needs to say theoretical. He's
Theoretical.
He's trying to enunciate theoretical.
What was it called? So poltergeist, in form or fashion, are PK activity. If you watch the movie Poltergeist in that same form or fashion, it's usually with targeted of people with adolescence, and that is not wrong because a lot of the cases that I dealt with that had poltergeist-like activity, there were teenagers or people that were going through adolescence involved, and that's why some of the activity was happening.
Same with me. When I was involved directly in a poltergeist case, it was fascinating. It was one of those few circumstances. You know, your paranormal investigator, you know, you come to the house and the client will say, oh, you know, before you came over, my sister's crucifix was pulled off of her. You know, her pendant was pulled off. Or, oh, hell broke loose after you guys left. This was a case where things were happening while we were there. Sugar bowls flying around, crockery smashing against the walls. My chair with me in it pulled back against the wall by an invisible force. That was golden. I don't underestimate the poltergeist because, you know, while we tend to think it's common parlance to say the poltergeist is just generated by a child, it's, you know, something will go away. So poltergeist can have an intelligence to them. They can have a voice. They can. I heard of one poltergeist in Vermont that actually wound bed sheets when the family came home. They looked like people sitting at a table. That's a sophisticated ghostly thing, you know.
But that is also, I think, time of like construction, like a construct, is another way of looking at it.
Yeah,
it's a construct, you know. So there is time of creation within it. I look at poltergeists in a form of fashion with adolescents. Like we have physical tantrums. We throw things when we're mad. Like I just threw something.
Your son threw it over his head.
And missed them. But in that same time, we have physical tantrums. We throw things when we're mad. So in that same perception, if you are mad but you don't want to physically throw something, in that same nature, I do believe that if psychokinesis does exist, that we're able to, in some form of fashion, through creation of this force or through telekinesis, throw the objects. And sometimes telekinesis and psychokinesis are also interlocked as well.
One thing I'll say about a poltergeist, its basic purpose seems to be to draw attention to itself. Despite any meanderings, it always seems to want to get the living people's attention, and it generally succeeds. So that's what a poltergeist is about, drawing attention to itself. Maybe that regenerates it, you know? Or like a child always wants the attention. Right?
Yeah, and I think maybe the longer that goes on.
You matter if people are paying attention to you, so that's what the poltergeist seems to be all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe the longer it goes on, you know, the energy just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. You know?
A good way for it to explain it too is it's popular in some form of fashion in the other paranormal aspects. But everybody knows the word artificial intelligence. But there are forms where people tend to think that a poltergeist or we as humans create an artificial intelligence.
Well, you mentioned tulpa. Now, what can you say about the tulpa? That is a construct.
Yeah, it's a construct. So in the form of fashion, tulpas are mostly found in the native lands where this force is created to guard this land, to interact with things that aren't supposed to be there. But in that same nature, that's done through ritual. That's done through a process of this creation, this construct for those reasonings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's actually made as a servitor. A servitor is a way to say that. A servitor is a spirit that's rather either summoned or created to do the magician's, the conjurer's will. So it's something like that, which brings us to the Philip experiment, the ghost that was created.
Yes.
Which
we can't give into too much detail, but we are.
Unless you've got a 3-hour show,
we are going to be involved, and this is an exclusive thing. We will give our findings at a later date, but we are actually going to be involved with the modern day Philip experiment, and that should be hopefully soon. But we've been starting on a process of doing that. But it's an interesting thing. The last time Philip experiment was done was 1975, and I don't think it's been reenacted ever since. Such as that.
To me, that's the most fascinating realm of paranormal research. Can you produce this? Can you create it?
Yeah.
Is it always coming in from outside? Does it sometimes come in from an outside source? Can you actually synthesize the spirit? Can you create it? if you can you make it demonic? You know, I mean, are we producing? Is something within the human consciousness or subconscious producing this?
And for people that don't know what the Philip experiment is, to answer that quickly, it was an experiment basically done to see if that they could create a non-factual spirit or person. So let's say in the Davy Jones, right? Well, what was their experiment? Who were they trying to manifest? Well, let's just say somebody that did not exist. They would put this ability into somebody that this person existed.
It was Philip of Monmouth, I think it was. It was well, there's a Geoffrey of Monmouth, who wrote Arthurian legend, but it's something along those lines. You know, you notice I'm turning into William Shatner.
William Shatner.
You know, because could it be? Can it be? That's why we are out here for exploration.
But have you watched The Unexplained yet? Speaking of Shatner,
No.
Yeah, I have.
you have to see that. The show is so good.
You know, William Shatner, he lampoons himself, and he's like supposed to be like a cartoonish character. He's effective. He's a good host. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he really is.
How Bill Shatner out.
Mm-hmm.
He does good with that.
So you are going to be coming on once a month. So all the stuff that's happening with you guys, you know, you'll be able to share on here.
Yeah, we'll give an update on us on our careers, you know, what's happening from time to time.
And we look forward to this. You know, I think it's these kind of situations where we're able to get in a collective minds together, conversate about this topic, discuss. It's very important because there's so much theory to this and not enough empirical evidence or fact to it. And it allows discussion, it allows misconceptions or theories that aren't known to be brought out there. There are a lot of experiments done, for people that don't know, there are a lot of experiments done that have disproved the possibility of the paranormal as well. So you gotta look at these things, and these discussions allow these things to be brought to light.
Miss Elise Gianmarco Carlson comments, this just popped up. I love Shatner, and that's a great show.
That is a great show. Thank you. Thank you,
I
Lise.
concur. He's a really good and effective host.
Yeah, a show that I like that was recently on was a show called Evil, ABC. That was a good show.
Oh, we watched that.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Really good show. And it has really a lot to do with what we actually come across in these cases.
Yeah, it has a lot.
Sheer hallucination, automation of the mind. A lot of these things are brought up. And even though in that form of fashion, the psychologist is actually able to believe they experienced something, just like how The Exorcist came to be.
But the experience on the their end as well, like what they're going through. Yep. So you get that mental thought of what they're dealing with themselves on their own personal lives and the shit they have to go through as far as dealing with those cases. So you see it on both ends.
Yeah,
it's great concept of a show.
Yeah,
and I don't mind saying this online, but I never really took shrooms to take a trip like he did.
That's true. I know, to meet God, you know.
I was actually
shortcut.
Well, I was part of a shaman circle, and I did peyote. I won't lie, but that was an experience. So I could see what his ability of nature was and why he did that. And a lot of people, and there's a theory out there, of course, this has nothing to do with the paranormal. Maybe it does, actually, because paranormal, especially the ghost aspect of it, is why is life there? What happens after death? But a lot of people think there's theories out there. We did come from the plains of Africa. Psilocybin, it is largely grown there in populations of mushrooms. So they think that because the humans that were first of those fields, those plains, they ate those mushrooms, and that is what helped develop our mind. That is actually
you think that's
a legitimate theory out there by many scientists that mushrooms on those fields actually help develop the human brain.
I thought that was different.
Interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Very interesting.
Unfortunately, psilocybin does activate your brain. There's studies for that.
Sounds like salicylic acid, aspirin.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think we've all dabbled in some things here and there that, you know, I mean,
we're not condoning drugs, people. We're not condoning drugs.
No, we're not. We're not.
We didn't have drugs in
Yeah, we're not Aleister Crowley. We do not take heroin and LSD to the extreme standards, guys.
Disclaimer.
You don't want to start, do you? No.
Oh, I think we're about to end anyway. I think.
Yeah, we unfortunately, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we can always take this party to the Brews page, but you know, on the Warehouse's page, you know, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I give what I did some credit because I started experimenting with that in 1972. I mean, we could have actually fallen into like just passing the, going around and sitting. Well, I'm seeing Lucifer right now. Isn't he mellow? No, but we never did experiment with drugs. My people and me, my group or coven, just never didn't have an interest in it. No,
Well,
that's why
You missed out on the action.
Yeah, I kind of missed out.
I was kidding.
I hate Ashbury, Maybe I did miss out on something. I don't know. Because I remember it. Maybe if I did it right, I wouldn't remember.
Yeah, maybe you would have seen some crazy crap.
All right, guys. As always, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. We have to get a date for October. So, James, I'll message with you and talk to Sabrina and Tony and just make sure, you know what I mean, everything's cool for a date for October. And hopefully, you'll have some awesome information and new stuff to share with us and, your experiment and all that stuff.
Yeah, and one quick shout out. We have 2 tickets left, October 10th, USS Salem. If you're interested, come join us on the USS Salem October 10th.
October 10th, good point. Yeah, that's the holdout, those 2 tickets there. Mm-hmm. One could be you.
Say it again. Say it again.
October 10th, 2020, the famous USS Salem ship, it was a battleship. It is in dock in Quincy, Massachusetts. We are going to give a haunted experience aboard the USS Salem. It's actually going to be on the ship, and it's called Hunting the Sea Witch. And
Nice.
2 tickets left. I'll tell you, it's going to be off the beaten track, because there are many things we do. It's going to be experimented. We're not going to be haphazard. It's going to be well planned out, but we are going to try some experiments in spirit communication or spirit reception. We're going to try and bag the spirit. You're going to manifest and isolate it.
And we made proton packs specifically for the. Oh, no, if you're going to be like that.
You'll have to share some pics.
Yeah. And these irons we have in the fire now we'll be able to elucidate further when we come back. Say what I didn't tell you then, that's what I was thinking. That's what I almost said.
Absolutely. So thank you again. You guys are awesome.
You're really welcome. Thank you for having us as your guest.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we look forward to next month.
We're going to do a bigger show.
Good luck, and obviously we'll be in touch out. And if anybody has any questions, I have Elise provided their email, and they're on Facebook, and you can hook up with these guys. They're awesome.
And please go check our new website out, Daemonologie.org.
Oh yeah, I had that up for a minute.
Graphics man behind that.
I don't know where it went because Elise shared it, but then I had it up for a second. But yes, so Daemonologie.org. Thank you guys. I love you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Adios.
Love you guys.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye. Thank you.
Say bye.